say the new course is called Your Intentional Future, and it's all about both mapping, planning, mapping, and then manifesting all of your dreams, the best and ideal aspects of your life, your future life. So it's really manifesting as well as mapping out your ideal rest of life. And that can be even if you're 20 or if you're 70 or 80. I can help people of all persuasions and all age groups plan and manifest their future. So I want to share with you a few extraordinary statistics. When we look at people with their goals and goal setting, believe it or not, about 80% of people don't make any kind of future plans. And when you look at New Year's resolutions, that's the time of year where everybody is making plans. About 77%, more than 3/4 of people follow through for only 1 week. They decide to lose weight. They decide to write that book they've always wanted to write. They plan to do an exercise program that's about the most popular, as well as weight loss. They decide to have a new job, a new career, et cetera, and they hold on to that for about a week. By 2 years, that 80% drops to about 19%. And by the time you look at whether or not people have got to their goals, only about 8% of people get within any kind of striking distance of their goals. However, there's new evidence from the University of Michigan, which studied and did statistics on this, that more than 3/4, 76% of participants who write down goals and discuss their weekly progress with their friends achieve them. And that's something I see regularly with the Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. When people make a vow with each other, when they review progress and they keep progress reports, not only do they stick with the program, but their friends cheer them on. So that's one of the aspects of this program that's going to make it so successful. You'll be working with groups of people who will be there for you, your cheerleaders, your backstop, all of the people who can help you achieve your longer term goals. They're even going to be reviewing them. I also want to just go through the top 5 deathbed regrets that people in hospices, people who are dying, say. This was put into a book by Bronnie Ware. It became a bestseller book, and it was all about the 5 deathbed regrets of the dying. She is a hospice nurse, and these are the ones that she took down most frequently. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard and missed so much. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. 5, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Number 6, I wish. A host of others, but those are the top 5. And just look at the number 1 regret. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Does that ring true to you? One of the problems is that we're so used to living the life that other people expect for us that we don't even make a bucket list. Or if you have one, have you got even close to achieving it? So what's on the top of your bucket list? I'd like you to take a moment to think about that. Do you even know your key passions in life? What are you hoping to achieve? Have you even thought about it? Do you think about it and just put it aside and say, well, that's not going to happen? So let's think about it for a moment. Your top 5 passions. List them in order of preference right now. And once you do, Then list how many of these passions are incorporated into your future plans for yourself. So please just take a moment to do that. 5 passions. What do you really want to do? What do you want to achieve? Now, that can be doing or it can be being. So it doesn't have to be something you do, doesn't have to be something even you achieve. What it might just be is changing the person you are to something else. So write them all down. And when I talk about incorporating these passions into your future plans, do you even have future plans? Do you even think about them? Or work out a way you can really experience this and these passions more? Or are they something that you do and dabble in your very, very limited free time? And that's the problem. So many of us are time poor. Sometimes we don't even think about this. So just look at that list for a moment. Are you anywhere near to even getting close to making a plan to achieve these passions or to use them in your life more than you are now? But what if you and I and everyone could design the path by seeing into our future, seeing what's there, all being like Scrooge on Christmas Eve and being able to travel with the ghost of Christmas yet to come and see into our future? Would that help us to design our present? So, is it possible to take a glimpse? So, aside from identifying passions, and lots of you don't even know what you really want, don't even know what that bucket list looks like, or don't even know what are your passions in order of priority. So, I'm going to help you discover that and help you assemble a bucket list, because everything you do for the rest of your life works better when you are more focused and more intentional. So we're going to bring intention into this future work. But first, we need to identify what it is we really want. And that's what I'm going to help you do with intention, individually with your groups. So now, looking into the future, wouldn't that help you isolate what it is you really want to do for the rest of your life? Well, you can. We don't think it's possible, but there's a great deal of evidence that you can. First of all, in the 1970s, the Stanford Research Institute, which was a research facility where all kinds of interesting studies were being funded. And in the 70s, they began what came to be known as a psychic spy program. This is Russell Targ on the left and Dr. Hal Puthoff, both of them physicists, and in Hal's case, an astrophysicist. And they were approached by the Central Intelligence Agency because the CIA believed that Russia was using psychics to spy on the Americans. So they wanted to set up a program to try to see if they could do the same. So they assembled, Targ and Puthoff assembled a batch of gifted remote viewers in the beginning. And in this picture, again of the 70s, you see Hal Puthoff from left to right, Hal Puthoff, Ingo Swann, Russell Targ, and Pat Price. Pat Price was one of their early remote viewers. He volunteered when he heard about their program because he was a former police chief who caught his criminals largely by remote viewing them. So he believed he could help out. Ingo Swann was an artist and gifted psychic who also put himself forward and impressed Hal and Targ, well, Hal initially, by remote viewing the inside of a complex piece of equipment at Stanford, something nobody had even seen. The only person who knew what was inside of this complex piece of machinery, this thing that measured quantum movement, was the inventor himself. But Swann drew and described it perfectly accurately. Over time, that's Hal to the right, Pat Price to the left, they did all kinds of remote viewing in present time, but also future time. There's Pat at SRI when in the midst of remote viewing. And one of the things that he saw when given just a list of map coordinates, that's what he was asked to do. The CIA wanted to find out what was going on here over in the Soviet Union. So they gave him a set of map coordinates. He didn't even know it was over in the Soviet Union. And he drew and described a gantry gantry going back and forth. The thing you see on the left, that's his drawings, and a whole facility that had a platform for this thing going back and forth. And he drew what looked like nuclear pieces of nuclear reactors that were almost like the segments of a giant orange. Now, nobody knew what to make of this, but the American government, when it got hold of this, it actually launched Ronald Reagan years later on his famous Star Wars program, because they were convinced the Soviets were ramping up their nuclear armaments instead of disarmament, as was supposed to be happening. It turned out that Price was completely right about this, but it wasn't for nuclear war, it was for nuclear power. So he was able to see things, and so were loads of other remote viewers, not even the gifted, people who had just practiced over any kind of space. But they also discovered that you could do this as well over time. Now, as I say, the other person that they worked with was Ingo Swann, gifted artist, and Swann actually coined the term remote viewing, the ability to see beyond our senses. He worked out and began working in remote viewing and became a gifted teacher of it as well. Now, by the time it went to Princeton with the PAIR project, the Princeton Engineering Anomalous Research Program, Anomalies Research Program, headed by the late Dean of Engineering, Robert John, and his partner, Brenda Dunn, the psychologist, they, as all of you remember, I've talked about it, set up a scholarly program over 25 years to look at the effects of mind over matter with all kinds of extraordinary electronic equipment. For those of you who have been to Broughton with us, you've actually seen some of that equipment. But they also worked with remote viewing too. And they really created a very systematized approach to remote viewing so they could really test it. They had a remote viewer who would stay behind in the lab, and then a traveling partner who was to go to a random destination. The random destination would be chosen among a batch of sealed envelopes listing all kinds of destinations, everything from around the corner to thousands of miles away. And the remote viewer was supposed to wait till the traveling partner got to his destination, at which point he would draw and describe where his partner was, as though he was looking through his eyes. They ran 336 trials with 48 different recipients, 48 different remote viewers, and 2/3 of them were accurate. But here's the kicker: the majority of them were precognitive remote viewing, meaning the remote viewer had to draw and describe where his partner was before the partner left. In fact, before the partner even took the envelope and knew where he was going. So they had breathtaking accuracy. Here's what happened with the remote viewing partner. A day before the traveling partner even left or had his envelope, he described that his partner would be at an old building with windows like arches, which come to a point almost, and square pillars with balls on top. And there's where the partner ultimately went, the traveling partner, to a galleria in Moscow with imagery, with a building that was exactly as he described it. Another one, the partner was described as, the remote viewer said his partner was going to be standing inside a large bowl, and if it was filled with soup, the agent would be a large dumpling. Here's where the traveling partner ended up in the radio telescope in Kitt Peak, Arizona, and it does look like a soup bowl, and if he were standing inside it, he would be a dumpling in there. And here's another amazing thing. The remote viewer saying all of this, drawing, describing the following. I see the train station, one of the commuter train stations that's on the expressway, the white cement of them, the silver railings. I see a train coming. I see or hear the clicking of feet or shoes on the wooden floor. There are posters or something up, some kinds of advertisements or posters on the wall in the train station. I see the benches getting the image of a sign. And here is what the remote viewer saw. So remote viewing can work over space, any sort of space. There have even been remote viewing to planets that were accurate, but it's also able to transverse time. We can see into the future, and there's a great deal of evidence about that. One of the most interesting was from Stefan Schwartz. He did a remote viewing project with people in his audience where he would routinely ask them to remote view 50 years into the future. So they would have to lie on their backs on the floor and get comfortable, and he'd walk them through a process where they were supposed to remote view into the future. And he had extraordinary results. Ordinary people who had never done this before predicted cell phones, because he started this in the 70s or so. They predicted cell phones. They predicted the internet. They predicted the end of the Soviet Union, climate issues, and much, much more. End of the Berlin Wall, all sorts of things like this. They were able to see into the future, just ordinary people. So if you take this course with me, we're going to remote view into your future. And we're going to do it with a really interesting method that Angela Thompson Smith called fly fishing. And we're going to be working with special techniques. And those techniques were created by James Van Everys. And he's done a thing called future memory. The way he does it, and I love the idea of fly fishing, is he has you remote view beyond the future you want to get to, and then use your memory to go back to it. It's a really cool system that we're going to work with. That and other things. We're also going to remote view in groups We're going to have other people in groups help you remote your own future by looking at it themselves. One thing you will find in this class is it's more successful when other people do it with you or for you. So we're going to do some future viewing in groups. We're also going to do future viewing in pairs. And we're going to do mapping in groups and pairs too. Now, this should be saying, sorry, that should say 9 ways to kill your dreams. And they are ways to waylay you. One is perfectionism. I can't do it until I do it perfectly. Or procrastination, checking your texts, phoning, watching TV, all that kind of thing. That kills your goals. Losing focus. You can't concentrate. You have difficulty following through. Or feeling overwhelmed. You take on way too much at once, and so you get nothing done. Not challenging yourself, taking on too little, playing it too safe. Or drama. Are you one of those people who loves to just create drama for the sake of it, whether creating arguments, misunderstandings, or acting the martyr, or stirring things up? What about judgments? Are you too critical of yourself or others? Is that getting in your way too? Or fear? You're frightened of failure. You have self-doubt. Or you're just angry. You're angry about your past. You're angry about your present circumstances. You're angry because you're not hitting your goals, and that is paralyzing you. We're going to work on all of them, and I'm going to help you overcome what is standing in your way. And as many of you who have taken our Broughton retreat know, we use retro intention to heal your past, but you can also use retro intention to overcome limitations and other forms of intention to heal what is stopping you from moving forward. So we will be working on loads of that as well. Now, what about mapping our own future? Is that possible? Now, again, those of you in Broughton got a little introduction to the work of Masanori Kanda, who created a book called Photo Reading, which recreates thought patterns. And he began working with a guy called Paul Scheele in America to create a course on future mapping. They mainly use it with business people because Paul's work is often with business people. But I have adapted and taking inspiration from them, looked at the fact of mapping your future by having a partner do it with you and a group do it with you too. Now, this is one of their little drawings. As you can see, they create a story that is 120% reality. So it's a bit more extraordinary than even the people hope for. And then ultimately they find the real story is more likely to come to pass. I look at much more at the idea of intention and partnership and altruism. And what I find is a key element of all of this is altruism, helping someone else reach their goals. And as well, making that public statement about going toward your goals and mapping that progress. Remember the University of Michigan study saying that people who actually note down their progress, keep records of their progress, and speak about it publicly, make a vow, so to speak, are much more likely to achieve them. So we're going to be using a process that I have put together specifically for this and going into much more depth than we did at Broughton, where we dabbled in it, we sampled it. We're also going to do some future viewing about your future in groups as well, and work on mapping in groups as well. So the more we can make those vows, the more we can see into the future, the more you will begin to believe it. And belief is really key to achieving your goals. Now, if this sounds like something you're interested in, please check it out further. That is the website URL, and there's a QR code so that if you want to find out more about it and read up on it, what I'm planning to do, it will be over 5 successive Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, 5 p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. European time. And it goes for 2 hours. It's live and interactive every week for 5 weeks. As usual, everything we do will be recorded, including this little talk. We'll be sending it to you. And I will be giving you homework. So you'll be working with me in a live and interactive way, and you'll be working with other members of the course. So far, it seems to be very popular. We have a lot of alumni from our other courses, our more intermediate courses, interested in taking part.